Trauma. In getting ready for this, I realized it was just too big for me to get my head around. In preparing for this message, I know of no words of my own that are adequate for people's trauma. Given the diversity and array of trauma, I worry it is too easy to tackle this topic the wrong way and to create more pain. So the other thing I then thought of was to say nothing at all and realize that that is actually worse, because silence allows trauma to fester into shame and then isolation, and then trauma eats away at us. So today I will humbly try to address trauma and healing. Know that what I say will not be enough, that I will probably make mistakes, but what I hope is that something from our service today can play a role in your healing and my healing and our healing. The book of Psalms serves as a foundation for this, as you saw with the reading from Psalm 69. A year ago, if you'd asked me about Psalms and the beginning of my seminary journey, I would have said, oh, that's the book of praise for God. But what I have learned in seminary, but even more importantly in my opportunity to participate in Redeemer's Wednesday Bible study, where we have taken the summer to read many of the Psalms, is that Psalms is so much more. In addition to praise, we find the poets are angry with God. They are frustrated, they are disappointed, and at times you could say they have their doubts about God and whether God is paying attention to their suffering. Think about the first 3 verses of Psalm 69. Save me, God, because the waters have reached my neck. I have sunk into deep mud. My feet can't even touch the bottom. I have entered deep water. The flood has swept me up. I am tired of crying. My throat is hoarse. My eyes are exhausted with waiting for God. The poet sounds overwhelmed, sounds scared, and is angry with God. I am drowning. I am tired of this. And where are you? But more importantly, the poet is not silent. The poet is not silent. In the poet's pain, the poet also seems to blame himself, which we see so often when we are in the midst of trauma. We see ourselves as the reason for our suffering when too often that is not true. In this moment, the poet says, God, you know my foolishness, my wrongdoings aren't hidden from you. The poet voices all of this, not holding it inside. The poet models for us how God can hold our pain, our sorrow, our anger, and our disappointment. We can be angry with God or with one another. We can doubt God's presence. This model shows for us how much room we have in this relationship that we have with God, and that we don't need to be perfect Christians. In the pastoral work I have been blessed to do at Redeemer Church this year, I've seen the impact of trauma in our lives. It is my belief that to be in community is to be in the midst of all kinds of trauma that we have faced. The things that are happening to us now and the things that have happened to us throughout our lives that we carry. Things such as the loss of loved ones, post-traumatic stress disorder, addiction, emotional abuse, physical assault, racism, mass shootings, isolation and loneliness. All of these experiences impact each one of us in different ways that we will never fully comprehend. We can be so overwhelmed that functioning day to day can become difficult. And we feel the poet's words, overwhelmed by the water, stuck in the mud, and hoarse from crying out. We feel as if no one hears us. We wonder what is wrong with us. And it's important to note, as the poet, we are human to feel this, and we need time to heal. The poet writes about the pain and about being overwhelmed. The poet resists the destructive nature of silence and of shame. We are to be a community. We are not alone. God heals us in ways we do not understand. And often part of that healing process is God acting through the people who love and care about us. Sometimes we don't even know who they are in those moments. And that does not mean that in the process of healing that everything will go back to the way it was. I've seen God show up in this form of this community striving to show love to one another, to care for one another. And it helps us see that we do not have to carry these burdens alone. It helps the healing. As it says later in Psalm 69, "But I am lowly and in pain. Let your salvation, O God, protect me. I will praise the name of God with a song. I will magnify him with thanksgiving." And later it says, "Let the oppressed see it and be glad. You who seek God, let your hearts revive." The poet of this psalm says, "Let your hearts revive." What beautiful words to close on. Let your hearts revive. As we move into song, please take a few moments to prepare for our ritual for healing. And as we hear the song, "Abide in Me," think of the trauma or traumas you may have experienced in your life and name it. Amen.